Getting injured in an accident can be very challenging physically, emotionally, financially as well, which is why navigating insurance claims and the whole process is so critical to ensuring that you sort of make sure that you got everything covered. Now, we got to break it all down and know our legal rights. So we're joined by personal injury lawyer Nainesh Kotak. Nainesh, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's start things off. I think usually when people get into an accident, they think that they're going to be covered by insurance quite immediately. Is that true? Is that false? Is that oversimplified?
I think it's partially false and partially oversimplified. So in Ontario, we have what's called a two-tier system of compensation. And the first is what's called basic statutory accident benefit, sort of a no-fault scheme, where you're entitled to income replacement benefits up to $400 a week. And medical rehabilitation, we pay for $65,000, but usually we get about $3,500 unless you have a fracture. They tend to classify things as minor injuries. But beyond that, there is the right to sue. And one of the items you would sue for is pain and suffering. However, to get any money for pain and suffering in Ontario in an auto accident, when you're injured, you need to prove that you have a serious and permanent impairment of an important bodily, mental, or psychological function. In other words, it's got to be permanent, got to be very serious. Even if you establish that, you're subject to what's called a deductible. So right now, and it goes up by inflation, right now that deductible is $46,790. So whatever, for example, a jury awards you for a fractured arm, maybe they award you $40,000, it gets wiped out. The only way you avoid the deductible is if your damages are worth more than $157,000. And Liam, I say this is a secret deductible, and there's a couple of reasons why. First, not everybody knows about it. But secondly, a jury is not allowed to be told about it at a trial. So in other words, whatever they think they're giving you, you don't actually get. It's kept by the at-fault insurance company.
Right. So, I mean, obviously you've already outlined so many of those little steps and details that a lot of people don't know, because when you're in an accident, it's very overwhelming. It's hard to kind of process what to do in that moment. Now, after, getting first responders there or whatnot, getting medical attention, when do you get a lawyer involved in the process?
Right. I think, it really depends on how serious your injuries are, because the reality is minor injuries, they're really not going to get compensation. So if you feel that, your injuries seem to be lasting longer than a few months now, things are getting a lot worse, then I would recommend reaching out to a lawyer, because there are limitation periods. There's a 2-year limitation period to sue, and even the accident benefit scheme, the no-fault scheme, is just very complicated. The forms you have to fill out to get benefits, and if insurance companies deny a benefit, then you have to apply to what's called the License Appeal Tribunal, and it's just a very convoluted regulatory process to do that, and it's kind of difficult to do it alone. So I would say you gauge sort of how your progress is, but certainly most lawyers offer a free consultation, so it's certainly advisable to do that.
And I know sometimes, you get insurance, you think that you're going to be protected in all circumstances, but that's not always the case. So are there extra steps that you can take to ensure that you kind of increase your chances of being covered and compensated?
Yeah, absolutely. So in 2026, we have legislation has come into effect to cause an opt-in approach. Really, that's what it is, an opt-in for accident benefits. In other words, you no longer get the income replacement benefits automatically, and it's 70% of your gross loss up to $400 a week. You'll have to buy into that. You'll have to buy in to get funeral benefits, right? So there's a number of items you're going to buy into towards. And the danger with this type of approach is that, look, people are having a hard time making ends meet. And if they could save on the insurance policy, they will. So they may not buy that product. And what's going to happen if they're injured and they don't get income replacement benefits? And even more consequential, we buy auto insurance. Our kids are covered there. Yeah. Let's say they're teenagers, they were still in school, they graduated, they're under our policy, live in the home. And we're going to make a decision for them because they're bundled in our policy. If we don't buy the income replacement benefits, for example, they can't work, they don't get paid. So I would say, number one, get the opt-in benefits, shop around, bulk your home insurance with your auto insurance if you can. Do those steps. And lastly, obviously, at some point we have to overhaul our auto insurance system. There's a lot of inequities. There's profits for insurance companies. There's high premiums. There's less benefits that people are getting, and this secret deductible. So ultimately, maybe it's lobbying your provincial member of parliament. Hey, can we please do something about this, because it's quite unfair.
And I think this is a great conversation to have because you need to be prepared before something does happen, right? So you have the information there in front of you. Nainesh, thank you so much for coming in from Kotak Law, giving us all the details we need to know in the case that we do get into an accident or something just happens in life, which is such a reality. Nainesh, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll be right back on Global News.
This portion of Global News is brought to you by Kotak Law, your long-term disability firm.